Coming up at the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival in July are three short films by director Guy Wilkinson. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to Guy now. Guy, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Good to talk to you. And you've got three really interesting films, Lasting Trace, Midnight Milonga, and Six Strings Up. Tell me about the origins of these films. How did they all come about?
They came about in very different ways, actually.
Yep.
One of them, a lasting trace, happened through a tattoo artist I met many years ago, about 20 years ago in Queenstown, when he actually did a tattoo for me. And then I found out he was living in the same city as me, so I reached out to him because I wondered what his journey had been like from when he was first starting out to becoming a very well-respected tattoo artist. Six Strings Up had more to do with I had this romantic notion of just wanting to be immersed in the world of guitar. I happened across Jeb Cardwell and I saw a video of him playing some beautiful slide guitar. And so I just went and met up with him in his workshop and spent some time with him. And he told me about finding an old beaten up record and how it changed his life. And I saw a story there. Midnight Milonga was just something I happened upon in the street. I was walking home on a summer's evening and I saw these people dancing on the stage in Argyle Square. And I just thought, wow, what a fantastic spectacle. And I was just curious to know the world behind the dancing.
How
So I
interesting.
reached out to the president. Yeah.
Yep, interesting to hear those backstories. So let's talk about each of the three films in a bit more detail because they are so intriguing. So, Lasting Trace, A Day in the Life of a Melbourne Tattoo Artist, is a really interesting observation of the work that this artist does and what motivates him, I suppose.
Yeah, I really, this wasn't something I came into with much of a preconceived narrative. I really, it was more just supposed to be a day in the life of an artist who I met many years ago. I just wanted to, it was just shed a bit of, just a glimpse into his world, really, without much of a plan. And so I just asked him a few questions and it just sort of unfolded quite organically.
Did it take long to film? Was it shot in a day or did it take longer?
One morning,
Uh, okay.
about half a day. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and he gave you good access, or were there some people in there that they didn't want filmed?
No, everybody was very welcoming, actually. I think it helped that we had that history that I'd met Rob 20 years ago and he'd actually done a tattoo for me in the past. So he was very amenable to the project, and so were the other artists in the shop, actually. I mean, tattoo shops can be quite intimidating environments to walk into. You know, the minute you walk in the door, there's a certain smell and the buzz of the needles going, and um, but they were actually very, very easygoing and welcoming of me doing it.
Okay, and it's a 5 minute documentary. I gather it was reasonably easy to edit.
Yeah, that one came together without too much difficulty, actually. I think I maybe worked on it for 4 days, something like that.
Uh-huh.
It yeah, I had a loose structure in mind, and I really, he had this idea that there was a little bit of a vague hankering for the past, I think, where he missed the slightly more rough and tumble rebellious days of tattooing. And so I guess that was my hook. And I just framed the rest of the piece around that. I also thought it was quite interesting that family of his friends had tattoos themselves. So I found that really interesting that he was just genuinely super enthusiastic about this thing that was a complete mystery to him.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting to hear that. All right, has he seen the film? How did he like it?
He has seen the film, and thankfully, he was very happy with it. I gather. He even told me his mother liked it, so I was happy to hear that. Yeah, I think the guys in the shop liked it well enough. So, I mean, it was a pretty simple project. Um, in retrospect, I actually feel like I could have perhaps delved in a bit deeper and made something a bit longer. But maybe another time.
Sure. No, I understand. Well, a longer documentary is Midnight Milonga, about tango dancing and so on. It's a really interesting storyline. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, that just, it all goes back to that fateful evening where I just saw it taking place. And, growing up in England, I'm a fairly emotionally repressed culture, perhaps. Dancing was never a part of my world. It was not something I was ever particularly comfortable with. So perhaps on some level, I was almost envious of this connection people seem to have. And I think the other thing that drew me to it was it kind of shaking their ass looking for attention. It looked like something you really had to work at to do and be good at and take a lot of dedication. And so I approached, there's a lady named Liz Pierce, who was the president of Melbourne Social Tango at the time. And she invited me to come along to a Milonga. And so I went up to this hall above a pub in Abbotsford. And I just started chatting to a lot of the people who were, hanging out at the bar while other people were taking their turn to dance. And I realized pretty quickly the level of obsession behind this. This is not something people do once a month. A lot of the people I spoke with said, "Oh yeah, we do this 4 times a week."
Mm.
So I thought, wow, like that happened a lot. Like a lot of the people really do seem to revolve their lives around it, or even a significant part of their identity. There's a lot more to it than dance steps. This is fundamentally about finding connection with other humans.
Yes,
And I thought that was possibly the most interesting aspect of it, really.
it is. It is. Yes, I found that really interesting indeed. And was it easy to shoot that one because that there's more going on in this film?
That was the first film I've made to date that was really focused on more than one person. So
Ah,
there were about 7 or 8 main characters in that. And I more complex and stressful that would be. And that's why a lot of the interviews you see kind of take place in the same space, in that practice hall, because I tried to knock them over kind of in a group. I've subsequently wondered whether or not the film would be stronger had I perhaps done it in a less structured fashion and perhaps just gone to their homes or followed them while they were, I don't know, on the train and that sort of thing, and dug out the emotional hook a little bit more. But this film is one I've never watched this film with other people. So
ah.
I'll actually be very intrigued when I go to the documentary film festival and watch it in a cinema with other people. I think you can glean a lot from the energy in the room and the reactions to certain moments. I will find that fascinating to find out kind of what worked and what didn't, because at the moment I don't really know.
Yeah. I really liked it. I thought I think audiences will appreciate it, and it explores an area that's not that well known. So I think that's it should work quite well. So well done on that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. And the third film, Six Strings Up, a sort of guitar-based film, etc. Tell me about that, a bit more detail.
Yeah, that was really just really I knew I wanted to do something involved in the world of guitars. So when I just saw Jeb playing a bit of slide, there was just something about his energy and that I liked. So when I went to his workshop, and we just sat and had a coffee surrounded by all these guitars and dusty equipment. And I just talked to him, and I don't think I even had the camera with me. And he told me about, I think I asked him what set him on the path to being a guitarist. And he told me that he just by chance found this broken, dusty old record, and it completely changed the course of his entire life. So when I went away and thought about it, I really felt that was the hook of the story. But really, that film is just kind of two guys hanging out in an old guitar workshop and just I just finding out who the man is behind the guitar repairs, and he has a pretty cool story, I think.
It
Yeah.
is an interesting story, and again, was it easy to film, or were there some issues in the way you made it?
That was again just shot over the course of a full day.
Ah,
I think I did go back and just do a couple of mop-up shots here and there. It was relatively straightforward to shoot. It was quite draining because we packed a lot. That was a lot into one day.
hmm.
Um, and I think we were both pretty tired by the end of it. But still, to shoot an entire small documentary in a day,
Yeah.
there
Well,
wasn't a lot of room to move. It was a very small workshop.
uh-huh.
So that was a little constraining. I didn't have the scope to do a great variety of shots. I'd back up 2 feet and I'd be up against a wall. Um, so in that respect, it was a little bit challenging. But he was a very receptive subject and um, I think pretty articulate as well.
Well, well done on that. Yes, I agree. I agree. He spoke well. Look, all three documentaries are really interesting. You must be really pleased that the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival has accepted them.
Yeah, enormously pleased. This is the first time I've actually entered the festival, so I was as surprised as anyone when I got the email saying we've accepted your project. I replied and said, "Which one?" And they said, "All of them."
Ah,
And I was, I couldn't believe it. I was thrilled. Yeah.
oh, congratulations on that. So, Guy, tell me, what is it that attracted you to being a filmmaker in the first place?
I was a travel writer before, which involved me being away a lot, and I became a father. So I'd been thinking about making the transition into filmmaking for a long, long time. Um, and I think the impetus came. I had an assignment at a resort as a travel writer in a resort in Big Sur, and the resort itself wasn't really my kind of thing. It was a lot. One of the interesting things they had was a falconry experience. And I met this man named Antonio Balistreri, and he gave this fascinating presentation for 2 hours under the redwoods with these birds of prey. And I was living in San Francisco at the time, and I was driving home with my wife, who also attended this presentation. And I think I said, like, geez, that was amazing. I wonder what this guy's life is like behind the scenes. We've seen the front end of this presentation. What must it be like to care for 20 birds of prey at your home? And my wife sort of jokingly said, well, maybe you should find out.
Yeah.
So I picked up the phone and gave him a ring, and fully expecting him to say no. But he said, sure. And so I actually spent 5 days following him around like the baking hot sand dunes of Monterey with this camera, with him, with these birds of prey on his arm. And that was really my first project. That project actually, I made the rookie mistake of not really knowing what I was doing in terms of my approach. I just wanted to do some kind of observational cinema. And I think I shot 6 hours of footage, which I then had to whittle down into, I intended it to be 20 minutes. It ended up being 30 minutes.
Hmm.
And that documentary kind of kicked my ass a little bit. I worked on it on and off for 2 years. And in the wake of that, I was thinking, be a content creator for Telstra. I knew I wanted to keep making films, but I wanted to simplify it. So I happened upon, I'd had these phrases bouncing around my head, like people behind places or shorts with soul. And I really wanted to just strip it back and take a bit of a punky approach to filmmaking. Um, so I'm not sure if I've got a bit off track there, but
No, no, that's fine. It's a really
yeah.
interesting explanation. So I'm intrigued. Are there any particular films or filmmakers or whoever that may influence you or you respect?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always watching documentaries and films. I mean, I think some of the ones that have made an impression on me recently. I loved Charlotte Wells' After Sun. It's obviously not in the documentary realm.
Yeah.
I enjoyed All of Us Strangers by Andrew Hay. I quite enjoyed The Rooster by Mark Leonard Winter.
Mm.
Um, and in terms of documentary, there's one on Netflix at the moment called The Turnaround, which is about a baseball fanatic in Philadelphia, which is great. But I think really I like a variety of films, but I like things that aren't super heavy on exposition. I like films that leave the some space for the um, that's really important to me. I don't like films that just spoon feed it all to you.
Yep, I absolutely understand. Well, Guy, congratulations. Are you working on other projects at the moment?
I am, yeah. My next project is about it's basically a love letter to a Royal 1949 Enfield Bullet motorcycle. Um, yeah, it's an older gentleman's journey. They had quite a story behind this particular motorcycle, so that's my next project I'm working on.
Okay, sounds really interesting. Look forward to seeing it.
Great, great.
Uh, Look, great talking to you. We've been speaking to Guy Wilkinson, who's the director of three short films playing as part of this year's Melbourne Documentary Film Festival in July: Lasting Trace, Midnight Milonga, and Six Strings Up. Guy, thanks so much for talking with me.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, all the best. Bye bye.
Yes, bye.